that back in the closet, Marissa. That blazer isn't for you. It's for Leela." Grant didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The dismissal was clean, efficient, like deleting a redundant file. He held the navy-tailored jacket I had purchased after closing my largest municipal contract in Denver, the fabric still carrying the faint scent of cedar from the boutique. He wasn't embarrassed. He was inconvenienced that I was touching it. "Victor expects a certain image tonight," he said, smoothing the lapel with his palm as he examined himself in the bedroom mirror. "He wants a founder who looks scalable. You project infrastructure. Leela projects growth. We need growth to secure the $200,000 bridge round." My fingers tightened around the hanger. He wasn't suggesting. He was restructuring me out of the frame. He placed a folder on the edge of the bed. Not flowers, not an apology, an addendum. "It formalizes optics," he said. "Leela will be presented as co-founder for the summit. You won't attend. It's cleaner this way. Sign it so we're aligned." He offered me that polished half-smile he practiced in networking events. "It's just positioning, Marissa. Don't be emotional." Most wives would have thrown the blazer at his head. Most wives would have dragged the girl out by her extensions. But I am not most wives. I am a compliance officer. When data contradicts the narrative, I do not cry. I reconcile. And Grant Whitaker was a liability entry I had been carrying for 4 fiscal years. I opened the folder. The document granted Leela Monroe an interim executive title for public-facing engagements. Temporary, cosmetic, strategic misrepresentation wrapped in corporate vocabulary. Grant stood adjusting his cufflinks, convinced he was steering a venture-backed rocket. In reality, he was duct-taping fireworks to a shopping cart. He loved the word founder. He hated the word margin. He forgot who wired the $3,800 monthly mortgage every month on this Boulder house. He forgot who paid the $1,200 monthly cloud hosting fees for his disruptive logistics app that averaged 12 downloads a week. He forgot the business-class flights to Austin and Seattle were charged to the credit card under my name. "You're right," I said evenly. "It's just positioning." I signed. He exhaled like a man who believed he had negotiated a win. He thought he was upgrading the brand. He didn't realize he was severing the firewall. Grant did not secure the venue for tonight's investor reception. I did. He did not know the St. Julian Hotel required a $3 million umbrella liability policy for private tech events. I secured it under Hale Advisory Group, LLC. He did not know the AV contract listed me as primary financial guarantor. He did not know the security detail assigned to the VIP conference suite answered to my authorization code. I hired them after the last time he forgot to pay a vendor. Grant was the pitch deck. I was the infrastructure. He grabbed the signed addendum from my hand. "Appreciate you being mature about this," he said. "Order takeout. Relax. Let the closers handle Langford Capital." I watched him leave, cologne trailing behind him like a false promise. He believed he was upgrading the brand. He didn't realize he was severing the operating system. I waited until the garage door shut. Then I walked into my home office and opened the master ledger for Whitaker Dynamics, Inc. If he wanted optics, I would give him structure, and structure is unforgiving. The next afternoon, the house smelled like perfume layered over insecurity. Leela stood in the hallway wearing my navy blazer, arms extended as she admired her reflection. The tailoring fit her poorly, shoulders slightly too narrow, but she carried herself like a billboard. "Oh my God, Marissa," she laughed lightly, adjusting the sleeves. "Did you seriously buy this for yourself?" I leaned against the doorframe. "Yes, I did. It fits differently on different frames." She smiled at herself in the mirror. "I guess some women are built for boardrooms and some are built for background operations." Grant walked in, tightening his tie, eyes fixed on her silhouette. He didn't look at me. "She's investor-friendly," he said casually. "You're excellent with back-end systems. Leela is brand equity." She met my gaze through the reflection. "Maybe take notes tonight from the live stream. You're good at paperwork. Leave the spotlight to those who know how to hold it." I studied them. The man I financed. The intern I had referred to him out of pity after she got laid off from a startup in Fort Collins. They weren't just using me, they were irritated by my competence. It's a predictable pathology. Dependence breeds resentment. They resent the proof that they cannot survive without you. "You look polished, Leela," I said calmly. "Be careful with red wine. Navy shows everything." I walked past them toward my office. They thought I was retreating. I was recalibrating. I closed the door behind me and opened a blank document titled Operating Agreement Amendment, Emergency Revision. He wanted a title adjustment. I would deliver structural realignment. And in Colorado, contracts speak louder than charisma. I drafted the amendment with the same precision I used when auditing municipal compliance reports for the state of Colorado. No wasted language, no emotional residue, just leverage structured in clean paragraphs. Section 11, Intellectual Property Reassignment. All proprietary software code, client databases, vendor agreements, branding assets, and derivative works developed during the company's operational lifespan were to be transferred to Hale Advisory Group LLC in consideration of deferred executive compensation totaling 48 months. Section 18, Cross-collateralization and personal guarantee. Any capital infusion, including the pending $200,000 bridge investment from Langford Capital, would be secured against both corporate and personal assets of the signatories. Section 23, Executive Authority Clarification. Interim titles granted for public-facing engagements carried no ownership equity unless explicitly notarized and recorded with the Colorado Secretary of State. I printed 3 copies. The ink was still warm when the town car pulled into the driveway at 5:59 p.m. Grant was late, as always, but tonight panic sharpened his movements. "Where are my cufflinks? Leela, did you confirm Victor's assistant?" He barked orders like a man who believed urgency was the same as competence. Leela emerged from the hallway adjusting my blazer, lips painted in a red she thought communicated power. "I can't find my phone charger," she snapped. I stepped into the foyer holding the clipboard. If you want her title reflected in the corporate registry before tonight's announcement, these compliance confirmations need signatures immediately. Otherwise, Victor will discover she's optics, not equity. Grant swore under his breath and grabbed the pen. "What is all this?" "Standard state compliance and investor indemnification. You want legitimacy? This is how legitimacy works." He didn't read past the header. He scribbled his name under the cross-collateralization clause without even adjusting his stance. I turned the clipboard toward Leela. "Your signature activates the equity pathway." She hesitated long enough to glance at Grant. Finally, she muttered, signing beneath the personal guarantee section. They thought they were signing into prestige. They were signing into exposure. "Done," I said. "The driver's waiting." They rushed outside, arguing about seating arrangement in the car, as if proximity to tinted windows equaled authority. I stood alone in the foyer. They believe power is applause. They believe it's the champagne flute and the camera flash. They are wrong. Power is recorded. Power is enforceable. Power is the paragraph people skip. I locked the house and drove separately. The St. Julian glowed against the Boulder skyline, glass reflecting mountain dusk. Photographers clustered near the main entrance. I bypassed them and entered through the service corridor. The security lead, a broad-shouldered former Marine named Ellis, straightened when he saw me. "Evening, Miss Hale. They're in the Aspen Conference Suite. Keep press outside the double doors unless I authorize," I said. "Yes, ma'am." I walked past catering staff balancing trays of sparkling water and charcuterie boards I had approved and paid for. Grant's voice carried through the mahogany doors, animated, theatrical. I entered without knocking. Victor Langford sat at the head of the polished table, silver hair immaculate, expression unreadable. Grant and Leela sat side by side, fingers intertwined like they were auditioning for a lifestyle magazine. "So," Victor was saying, tapping a Mont Blanc pen against his notebook, "explain your unit economics, specifically your customer acquisition cost versus lifetime value ratio under Q4 projections." Grant blinked. His jaw moved without sound. Leela laughed lightly. "We really focus on community energy and brand resonance," she said, flipping her hair. "The numbers followed the vision." Victor's pen stopped moving. The silence thickened. "Actually, the customer acquisition cost averages $38 per user, with a projected lifetime value of $410, assuming churn remains under 5%, I said, stepping forward. Grant spun around. "What are you doing here? Leave." Victor looked from him to me. "And you are?" "Marissa Hale, compliance officer and intellectual property owner of the Whitaker Dynamics platform you're evaluating." I placed the folder in front of Victor. He opened it slowly. He saw the IP reassignment dated and notarized. He saw the amended operating agreement bearing both signatures. He saw the personal guarantees attached to the proposed bridge funding. His eyes sharpened. Is this documentation legitimate? It is filed with the Secretary of State and timestamped as of 4:11 p.m. today. Grant stood abruptly, knocking his chair backward. This is sabotage. Victor raised a hand. Quiet. He flipped another page. The interim co-founder title carries no equity. The debt liability, however, is personal. He looked directly at Leela. Did you understand that when you signed? Her face drained of color. Grant tried to speak again. Victor stood, closing the folder with deliberate calm. You attempted to secure investment under material misrepresentation. My firm does not tolerate deception. He tore the unsigned check in half and placed the pieces neatly on the table. Consider this meeting concluded. He exited without raising his voice. The room felt smaller after he left. Grant stared at the shredded paper like it might reassemble itself if he wished hard enough. You destroyed us, he whispered. No, Grant, I replied evenly. I documented you. Leela's breathing turned shallow. You tricked us. I handed her a copy of the agreement. I gave you exactly what you asked for, equity activation. It just required accountability. Grant drove home in silence, hands gripping the steering wheel of the leased Audi I had paid every month. Leela cried quietly in the back seat, mascara streaking across the collar of my blazer. When we reached the driveway, Grant rushed to the keypad. He entered the code. Red light. He tried again. Error tone. What did you do? He demanded. I stepped from my car and leaned against the hood. The evening air carried the faint scent of pine from the foothills. I didn't break anything, I said. I enforced the agreement. The personal guarantee you signed tied the pending bridge loan to all declared assets listed in the operating report, including this property. He stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. The lien filing processed electronically an hour ago. Until the debt exposure is resolved, access is restricted. Leela's voice trembled. Where are we supposed to go? I shrugged lightly. Innovate. You're the visionary. And for the first time since I met Grant Whitaker, he looked less like a founder and more like a man who had just realized the numbers were real. The house sat behind them in perfect stillness, porch lights glowing over a property neither of them legally controlled anymore. The mortgage had always been in my name. The equity had always been mine. The only thing Grant ever owned in that house was his ego, and ego doesn't survive foreclosure filings. Where are we supposed to sleep? He asked again, but the sharpness was gone. His voice sounded smaller, like it had been resized to fit reality. I adjusted my keys in my hand. I don't know, Grant. You're the CEO. Scale a solution. Leela stared at the dark windows like they might suddenly feel sorry for her. I opened my car door. Neither of them tried to stop me. That was the most honest moment of the night. No screaming, no accusations, just the quiet terror of consequences arriving on time. I drove away without checking the rearview mirror. The mountains along Highway 36 were shadows against the sky, unmoved by anyone's collapse. Justice doesn't descend like lightning, it processes like paperwork. The following weeks unfolded exactly the way contracts are designed to unfold. The $200,000 bridge loan never materialized, but the personal guarantee remained enforceable under the signed amendment. Because the agreement had been notarized in our own dining room before they left for the investor meeting, it held. Leela tried claiming she hadn't understood what she signed. The court didn't find confusion persuasive next to a clean signature and a notary seal. The debt attached itself to her credit profile like a tumor you can't ignore. Garnishment orders followed. The interim co-founder title she bragged about on social media lasted less than 72 hours before it was quietly deleted. She moved back to Colorado Springs, into her mother's basement, trading filtered photos for double shifts at a restaurant off Powers Boulevard. Grant deteriorated faster. Victor Langford didn't need to sue. A quiet word travels further than a lawsuit. Within 2 weeks, Grant's name was circulating in Denver's startup circles with one word attached to it: misrepresentation. No accelerator would return his emails. No angel investor would schedule a call. The Audi was repossessed before the end of the month. Watching the tow truck haul it away felt less dramatic than expected. It was just another asset rebalancing. The last update I heard came from a former vendor who spotted him selling pest control subscriptions door to door in Arizona. Reinvention is easier when no one knows your LinkedIn history. My phone lit up for a while with blocked numbers, late-night voicemails. "Marissa, please, we were good together. We were a team." I didn't listen to them fully. I deleted them halfway through the first sentence. They sounded like promotional spam promising returns on an investment I already audited. I didn't feel rage. Rage requires attachment. What I felt was clarity, the kind that comes when noise finally stops. I stopped being someone's infrastructure and started being my own. I formalized Hale Advisory Group into Hale Strategic Compliance, registered clean, independent, capitalized without anyone's ego attached to it. I walked into boardrooms alone. I presented my own analytics. I negotiated my own retainers. No frontman translating my work into something more palatable. I bought a condominium in Cherry Creek. Modern, minimal. One security code, mine. But growth without reflection becomes repetition, and in the quiet after expansion, I forced myself to examine the part of the equation no one applauds. Not Grant, not Leela, me. We love to condemn the narcissist. We dissect the manipulator. We circulate quotes about toxic partners. But we rarely interrogate the person holding the umbrella over them in the storm. I wasn't dragged into that dynamic. I volunteered for it. I told myself I was being supportive, that real partnership meant carrying weight when the other person stumbled. But there is a difference between helping someone stand and kneeling so they can climb onto your back. I funded Grant's fantasies because it felt easier than confronting his mediocrity. When he missed rent, I covered it. When his pitch decks lacked substance, I rewrote them. When he felt intimidated by my competence, I minimized myself to preserve his comfort. I confused loyalty with self-erasure. I believed potential was a down payment on character. It isn't. Potential is a projection, and projections are dangerous investments. If you are the responsible one in your relationship, if you are the planner, the payer, the fixer, understand the 3 principles I learned without negotiation. First, loyalty is not a suicide pact. Shared history does not entitle someone to your future stability. The moment someone expects you to set yourself on fire so they can stay warm, the contract has been breached. Loyalty ends where respect expires. Second, stop dating potential. Stop building businesses with imaginary versions of people. Evaluate what exists, not what could exist under perfect conditions. Grant was not a visionary in waiting. He was comfortable being carried. I wasn't supporting ambition, I was subsidizing avoidance. Reality does not adjust itself to protect your optimism. Third, contracts over feelings. When love dissolves, paperwork remains. Prenups, operating agreements, asset titles. These are not signs of distrust. They are acknowledgments of human unpredictability. If I had relied on emotion instead of documentation, I would have been the one locked out of my own property. Never attach your signature to someone else's ego. Always understand the leverage of what you sign. Always keep the receipt. Look at your life carefully. Identify who depends on your strength while criticizing its existence. Who rides on your back and complains about the speed? Put them down. They will accuse you of betrayal. They will say you changed. They will call you cold. But cold is just clarity without apology. When I finally stopped carrying Grant's illusion, I discovered something simple. I was never heavy. The weight belonged to him. And once it was gone, I moved faster than I ever had. If this story stayed with you longer than the video itself, don't walk away. Subscribe. This channel is for people who actually feel what they hear. And if you know someone still holding an umbrella over a storm that isn't theirs, share this with them.